It is Tuesday, April 21st, 2026, and today we've got plenty to talk about here on today's episode of Armchair Analysis. Welcome in. Hope you guys are having a good day. And, man, what am I doing? Hang on. Let's get that on. There we go. Hope you guys are having a good day so far. And, again, welcome in to another episode. We've got a little bit to talk about today. I found a couple articles I wanted to go over that I just found kind of intriguing. Wanted to give some generalized thoughts. I'm not going to go over the entirety of the articles, but because they are paywalled articles, and I don't really want to go too far out of my element there. But there were a couple. The Athletic dropped their top 20 group of 6 head coaches. That was Chris Vadini who did that. Typically enjoy his content and the stuff that he does on the Athletics. So I want to talk about a couple of the names that I saw on there, or a few of the names I saw on there, better yet, and kind of give generalized thoughts. As you guys know, we do a top 10 list of head coaches in college football later on down the line as we get closer to preview season. About a month away from now, we'll be starting those. And so I wanted to just kind of take a look at some of those names that were on there, see if what I agreed with, disagreed with, some of the general thoughts I had. As for another article that I found, 2 other articles I found in a sense, because both of them did the same article essentially. Stuart Mandel and Bruce Feldman both put out their top 25 head coaches in college football, which I found to be very intriguing. And so I wanted to go take a look at some of that stuff as well, kind of look through, see what we had to say, what they had to say, what they thought, and some of the things that surprised me, I agreed with, didn't agree with. There were a couple things that really stood out to me that I had to say something about, so I'm going to throw them in there as well. But that's kind of what you can expect from today's video. Now, the starting part of this, the starting point for this, is about Louisiana Tech. It's been well documented. Just a couple months ago, as a matter of fact, there was a graphic that came out about the fact that they're supposed to play 20 plus games in college football this year because of their scheduling being with the Conference USA and the Sun Belt. So what's been going on, of course, if you're not familiar with Louisiana Tech and kind of how this situation has unfolded, they announced they were going to leave the Conference USA to go to the Sun Belt. The targeted year was 2027. They expressed that they were certainly trying to make that happen for this year, 2026. And they told the Sun Belt, yeah, we're going to be there. And Conference USA said, no, you're not. And it becomes, of course, the legal battles and all that stuff. This was rolling through courts, restraining orders, all kinds of different things. And as it was supposed to go up to, I believe, the state of Louisiana Supreme Court, if I'm not mistaken, or at least a federal court of that nature, it seems as though both sides have reached a settlement, which means that I don't know if Louisiana Tech's paying any money. They didn't say anything specific about that, but it seems that both sides reached a settlement, meaning that Louisiana Tech is now free of the Conference USA. They will be a part of the Sun Belt in 2026, which is I think, a good thing for them. But at the end of the day, I don't really know what it adds on either side. It doesn't take away much from the Conference USA. I think, look, CUSA for all intents and purposes is a step up from FCS at most. I mean, that's where all the FCS programs are going for the most part, other than North Dakota State. And it just kind of feels to me as though it is a conference that isn't really taken all that seriously. And I like the Conference USA. I enjoy watching their games, especially their new midweek format as well during the month of October, where you get to see a little bit more of those squads kind of take place. It's I don't know, it's kind of unfortunate to watch this conference fall apart the way it has, especially with UTEP leaving for the Mountain West, or at least I believe it's the Mountain West. I'm very certain it's Mountain West, um, because Texas State's the one going to the Pac-12 in the state of Texas. Anyways, with UTEP leaving and now Louisiana Tech leaving, it drops the Conference USA down to 9 members, and all 9 members are, for the most part, relatively new programs in college football. I mean, I if I'm not mistaken, I think all of them joined the FBS in the 90s or later. That I'm almost certain of that. And because Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee State, I think, are the 2 oldest in present college football, which is kind of surprising. I don't know. It leaves a lot to be desired with this conference, and that's unfortunate because, again, I like this conference. I'm going to enjoy watching their Tuesday, Wednesday matchups. It's going to be fun to watch for me. But I know that a lot of people are not taking it as serious. A lot of people think it's just FCS plus, essentially. And to a point, the roster builds are. The roster builds are not all that great. I don't know Louisiana Tech goes to the Sun Belt and competes, to be completely honest. I've looked at the roster a little bit, done some digging. I don't quite know where they're going to line up here. It is kind of just to say the group of 6 sports right now. The teams that are not perennial contenders in our conference don't really seem to get a lot of love and a lot of don't really seem to be growing, essentially. So it's tough to say where this will land and what this looks like. It's just kind of an interesting move on both sides. I don't know. I feel like I've rambled a lot of things that essentially could be saying the same thing. The big change here: Sunbelt goes to 13 schools. Again, I talked about Conference USA dropping to 9. This buyout process that has turned into a settlement. It's interesting, but it's finally in the past, and I think Louisiana Tech can now look forward to this season. Sonny Cumbie's got a team that I think is going to be okay, but I don't feel as though they're going to be great or really even that good. I think they're probably maybe a 6-win team, 7-win at most. Just depends on what the rest of Sunbelt looks like and what they're able to do. So I'm going to leave that there. We'll talk more about it, of course, when we get to the Sunbelt Conference preview later. That'll be around the August timeline. Moving on to these couple of articles. Again, I talked about them. I wanted to bring a little bit up, but I don't want to spend too much time. Again, if you're an Athletic subscriber, you can find these articles very easily. If you are not an Athletic subscriber, at least you can kind of get an idea of where their minds are and where some people are at with these. So I'll start with Chris Vanini because this was the G6 list. And it started with Dan Mullen. I was a bit surprised by that. Now, they had a really good year last year at UNLV. Don't kind of take that as a misunderstanding. But I just don't really know that I buy into Dan Mullen being the top of the list. I'm not surprised by any means because I think that was kind of just the way they wanted to go with it. He came in, was successful immediately, was really good with the portal. UNLV has been good with the portal, even going to the Barry Odom side of things. I don't really see that being too much different this year. Looking at some of the other things, it was interesting to me and kind of fun to me to see service academies holding number 2 and number 3, being Brian Newberry holding number 2, Jeff Monken at 3. Newberry is 21-5 the last 2 years as a head coach at Navy. This has been really impressive stuff that Navy's put together, and a lot of that comes off the fact that they've had they had Horvath at quarterback and Heidenreich being so good, and Teska, like this core of guys that are no longer there, certainly brought this team back to prominence. And the win over Oklahoma, they have a win over Cincinnati, they beat USF twice, they beat Memphis twice. They have really controlled everything that they've done. And it was good to see. Just to have Navy be in that conversation going there. Army, same situation, right? Jeff Monken's been in the conversation for a lot of head coaching jobs over the last 10 years now. And really since Army kind of started building themselves up and becoming a perennial 7 to 10 game winner every year. And so Monken's been in that conversation time and time again. Not surprised to see him at number 3, but in a sense I am. I didn't really expect them to go with the Service Academy coaches as 2 and 3, but the way they're able to hold the rosters together, of course, via contracts and all that other stuff that goes about while other schools have to deal with the portal and everything else, the Naval Academy and West Point don't have to deal with that as much or at all, other than players leaving because they no longer want to pursue the military route. It kind of that can change things a little bit. Moving on, Jason Eck was up into the top 20 in this group. He was 9-4 last year as a head coach in New Mexico, and that's kind of a kind of a cool thing, actually. I think he fell into number 10 even with that. So that was cool to see. Jason Eck was a name that surfaced a lot with the UCLA job, especially early in that process. I don't really know what Jason Eck's going to look like. I don't know what this New Mexico team is going to look like this year. This is a team I haven't taken a whole lot of looks at. I like Jason Eck being up there, though. He came in and won immediately. I mean, look, Bronco Mendenhall left and didn't really leave a whole lot left for Eck to work with, and somehow still has put together a really good year. So, along with Jason Beck leaving on top of that and going to Utah, and now obviously being in Michigan, but taking Devin Dampier with him and everything else that left, for New Mexico to have been as good as they were last year was certainly a testament to what Jason Eck was able to build over the spring and summer leading into the fall. Neil Brown is at number 12 as he's returning to the head coaching ranks at North Texas. He's going to take over for Eric Morris. And I think this is going to be a really good fit. I like Neil Brown a lot as a G5, G6 head coach. I think he's going to be very successful. If you guys followed him or knew of him at Troy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He was that was probably one of the best tenures anybody's ever had at Troy. And to be able to do that, I think he's going to come down here to North Texas, be able to recruit a little better up in Denton, get kind of the leftovers of the DFW area, keep kids home. That's going to be a really big step in North Texas maintaining their competitiveness in the American. I think this is a really good move. I know there's a lot of people, especially West Virginia fans, who are like, well, this is Neil Brown's just going to be mediocre like he was there. Don't let the recency bias or the fact that you just don't like him based on what happened at West Virginia to hamper your opinion of what he can do in the group of six. I think he's going to do a great job. I think that this is going to be kind of a seamless transition outside of the fact that of what they lose in the portal going with Eric Morris. This North Texas team stays relatively competitive again in 2026. The surpriser for me was the fact that they kept Tim Albin in the top 20. Look, his tenure at Ohio was fantastic, and honestly, I think he made the bigger mistake of leaving Ohio to go to Charlotte. He was offered more money, and they went 1-11 last year, and he brought some players with him to UNC Charlotte that should have helped elevate the level of play. It just didn't happen. This was not a good team last year, and to be honest, things don't look like they improved very much either going into 2026. Tim Albin staying in that top 20 surprised me, but I think what's going to surprise people more is the fact that you're going to realize what he was doing at Ohio was simply because he was able to kind of draw names to that school based on what it's been able to do for the last 20 years, ever since Frank Solich took over. This is just a program in Charlotte right now that doesn't have a general direction, doesn't know what they're going to do. They're struggling in the NIL game because they are unfortunately a UNC school, and a lot of the money goes towards Chapel Hill. It's going to be interesting to see what happens and how that carries forward. But Tim Allen being in the top 20 just surprised me a tiny bit. That's all I really have from that article. Again, you can go find that on The Athletic. I'm not paid to sponsor it. I'm shouting it out because I enjoy the articles that these guys put out, and especially these opinion pieces, because, again, it gives me kind of a gauge on where I am, too, on some of these guys. Like, I wouldn't say I agree with the majority of this list, but I don't hate it. I don't think they're wrong. They're opinions, right? How can an opinion be wrong? But I certainly have some agreements and disagreements with the entirety of these lists. Wanted to point out some of the bigger sides of this. Moving on, Stuart Mandel and Bruce Feldman did their top 25 head coaches throughout college football. And I think it was no surprise that both of them had Curt Cignetti at number 1. To me, I was a bit taken aback because I felt like one of them would certainly try to put Kirby Smart or even Ryan Day up in that conversation. Cignetti's done a great job. Look, he's the hottest name in coaching right now. The guy that you want to build yourself after or maybe even go coach for is Curt Cignetti, and that's for rightful reasons. I mean, he has been a dominant force in terms of acknowledging the NIL game, working with the NIL game, and doing it efficiently. I mean, Indiana's not spending an arm and a leg. They're spending, $15 million, I think I looked at the other day, compared to some of the other spending budgets that other teams have. they're doing more with less, and they're continuing to put themselves in position. And they just won a national championship while going undefeated, beating Ohio State for what was it, the first time and since the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. Last year, beating Michigan for the second time since the 80s. Obviously, the COVID year, I think, was the other one. It feels as though this is the right call, but I'm just surprised that Ryan Day and or Kirby Smart didn't go up there. And I think Ryan Day even more specifically than Kirby Smart right now. Kalen DeBoer was in the top 5 for both of these guys, and I was a bit surprised by that. Now, year one at Alabama didn't go quite the way they expected. Of course, the turnover that had to happen within that program with Nick Saban leaving, all the players that went out and exodus in the portal, and Kalen DeBoer having to kind of build it up his way and put his team together. Year one without Ryan Grubb didn't look great. Year two, Ty Simpson had a chance to come back in year two of this offense and show that he was capable. He did that. They win 11 games. They make the playoffs, lose to Indiana in the playoffs. I feel like this was I feel like it was a step forward, but I'm not quite ready to say that Kalen DeBoer is a top 5 head coach. Now, I don't know who I'm ready to say would be in his place right now, uh, without going back and looking at both of these lists, but I don't know that I'm ready to say that, and I'll do more of that later because I think he's in my top 10. I just don't think he's in my top 5 quite yet. So that was a big difference for me. I think the Washington tenure carries a lot of weight, and certainly they had one of the best teams in the Pac-12 that year, getting to the national championship, losing to Michigan. But I just don't know that I'm fully bought in on Kalen DeBoer yet at Alabama. I was beyond shocked to see Clark Lea as low as I did in this entire situation. I think he was top 15 in one list and 25th in the other. I mean, he was barely hanging into this. And I've been on the Clark Lea hype train since 2023, which, if you'll remember, 2022 was a terrible year, but you saw improvement from this team. 2023, this team took a further step forward. And I remember saying in a group chat that we have with a bunch of our college football buddies that you can find, friend Colin at Badges CFB show. I know that RJ, frequent commenter, will remember this. I think Cam, quite a few of them will remember this when they watch this. That I said Clark Lea was going to build Vanderbilt. I'd say Clark Lea is a good head coach, and what he's doing at Vanderbilt shouldn't go unnoticed. And that was in 2023, leading into 2024's step forward, and 2025 being probably the best year yet for Vandy football. And then they just go out and take the number 2 quarterback off the board and Jared Curtis. This is a surprising move because Vanderbilt was in the gutter, not just for SEC standards. They were the gutter of Power 4 college football. They were the worst team down there with 2 years ago Indiana. How Clark Lea is not praised more for doing what he's done at this program is beyond me. It just is. I don't understand how he's not closer to top 10. I think he's top 10 for me right now, personally. I know that's probably maybe a little bit of a stretch. Maybe that's part of me being a little bit, I don't know. I don't want to say homerish because that's not really the term I would use. More of like I don't know if that's me just kind of sticking to what I said 3 years ago and feeling that confident about how I said what I said and the fact that it kind of worked out for me. But I feel like Clark Lea is extremely underrated, especially based on these numbers right here. If you're putting him at 15 or 25, I don't think there are 15 head coaches in college football better than Clark Lea. That's just how I feel. So, I don't know. Let me know what you think about Clark Lea. Is he being underrated at 15 and 25, or is he right on the money? Another one I really liked, actually seeing this one in here, was Willie Fritz. Made it in at number 16 for both of these guys. And Willie Fritz has done a great job. Speaking of very good quarterbacks, Houston's bringing one in this year, and I don't know the exact stories yet about it. Seems like that's going to be a very, very positive thing for this Cougars offense. Willie Fritz has done a really good job with the portal. He's done a really good job, especially when he was at Tulane, kind of maintaining as the portal started to become a bigger problem, especially with NIL. At Houston, they are doing a great job. He now is reunited with Mekhi Hughes, who's going to be a big addition to this offense in the running game. I really like what Houston is in 2026. After I think they won 8 games last year, at least 8 regular season games. this Houston team is going to be better than that in 2026, and I think that includes Willie Fritz being rated higher in 2026 as time goes on. A very underrated head coach, a very underrated name in circles around the sport. I think that him kind of starting to get that recognition, especially because he's doing what he's doing now at a Power Four program, who's also struggled a little bit since joining the Big 12, definitely boosts the confidence a little bit for me and what I'm going to be saying later on down the line about this Houston team. So that's kind of what I have for you today. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time here. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do today. Wanted to save more of the spring recaps and stuff like that, more of the storylines coming out of spring ball, a little bit for a day I had off where I could focus fully on this. Of course, for those of you that don't know, I do the ICM college baseball show on Tuesdays, so getting 2 episodes in at once on the work week or on the Tuesdays where I work is a little bit more difficult than I would like for it to be, but it is what it is. It has to happen. So we did the baseball show earlier today. You can go check that out on the Ice Cold Milk baseball channel. You can also, again, if you're new around here, like and subscribe. Follow us here at Armchair Analysis. We bring you content Monday through Friday most weeks. Now, there are going to be weeks, especially as we get back into things where there's not an episode, where there's things that we just don't do. Tomorrow might be one of those days. I'm not terribly certain yet. But what I can tell you is you just like, subscribe, and if you hit that notification bell, it'll tell you exactly when we've uploaded and what we've talked about every day. So you can make sure you tune in and check out whatever we have to talk about here on the channel. So I thank y'all so much. I must again promote preview season, June 1st, 68 teams in 68 days. I ask that you guys please tune in for that. It's going to be a really good time, and it's going to be very fun, I think, to go through the entirety of the college football landscape. So thank y'all so much. Hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week if you don't come back, but hopefully you do. Again, like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of Armchair Analysis.